Today's mindful moment, packed with insights but designed to fit into your busy life. One deep dive at a time. Ever feel like your faith or maybe just like your interest in things goes through these like peaks and valleys?
You're not alone.
Yeah, it's like you're soaring one day and then the next day you're just in a total slump.
Yeah.
C.S. Lewis actually had some really insightful and funny things to say about this in his book, The Screwtape Letters.
It's a really unique book.
Yeah,
it's not a typical narrative.
Right.
It's actually a series of letters from a senior demon
Oh, wow.
called Screwtape
Okay.
to his nephew Wormwood, who is a junior tempter,
Okay, so we're getting a glimpse into,
trying to tempt a human soul away from the enemy.
yeah, behind enemy lines. So who is this Screwtape character? What kind of mentor is he to his nephew?
He's pretty brilliant.
Okay.
I mean, he's definitely a master strategist when it comes to, like, exploiting human weaknesses.
Yeah.
But he's also deeply cynical and seems to, like, despise humans, even as he's trying to manipulate them.
He's resentful and almost like he's resentful of humans.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
He seems particularly frustrated with modern humans.
Oh, really?
Finding them easily swayed by trends and jargon
Oh, interesting.
rather than logic.
Yeah.
And he has this underlying disgust
Oh, okay.
at how God the enemy operates.
So what is it about the enemy's tactics that Screwtape just hates so much?
I think he really hates that God uses genuine pleasure and joy to draw people closer.
Interesting.
He sees it as unfair, even a bit unsporting.
Yeah,
Screwtape wants to keep humans focused on fleeting,
right.
ultimately unsatisfying pleasures
Okay.
that leave them feeling empty and disconnected.
So he's not just about outright evil.
No.
He's about distorting the good, twisting things to his own advantage.
Right.
How does he go about doing that? What are some of the strategies?
One of his main strategies revolves around this concept of undulation. Lewis uses this term to describe the natural ebb and flow of human experience. Those peaks and valleys we all go through, whether it's in our faith, our relationships, or even our creative pursuits.
So it's not some kind of demonic trick. It's just part of being human. Yeah, it's just being human.
Yeah.
Lewis calls humans amphibians because we're caught between the spiritual and the material.
Okay.
Our faith, like everything else, naturally has its high points and low points.
I think everybody listening can relate to that feeling of being pulled in different directions.
Absolutely.
How does Screwtape exploit this natural ebb and flow?
He wants Wormwood to focus on the troughs, the low points.
Yeah.
When doubt or discouragement or even boredom set in,
Okay.
he sees these moments as prime opportunities to tempt the human away from the enemy.
Yeah.
You know, whisper those little doubts, magnify those frustrations, and keep the human focused on the negative.
It's like when you're feeling down and everything just seems so much worse than it actually is.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Screwtape wants to amplify those negative feelings and keep the human stuck in a cycle of despair. He wants them to believe that those troughs are the only reality.
But isn't there a danger in like overemphasizing the present moment? Don't we need some sense of a bigger picture to stay motivated and make good choices?
That's a great point. The enemy also emphasizes the present moment,
Interesting.
but for a very different reason.
Okay.
He sees it as a meeting point with eternity,
Oh, wow.
a place where we can experience his grace
Okay.
and make choices that align with our true purpose.
Yeah.
For Screwtape, focusing on the immediate is all about instant gratification
Okay.
and avoiding any thought of consequences or the bigger picture.
So it's not just about living in the moment, it's why you're focusing on the present.
Yeah.
And for Screwtape, it's about keeping us distracted from the enemy.
Right. And he uses all sorts of tactics to achieve that goal.
Like what? What are some examples?
Well, he's a big fan of flippancy and irony as ways to deflect from serious thought. He wants humans to treat everything as a joke,
right.
avoid any real commitment or
Yeah.
genuine emotion. He also loves to exploit divisions and disagreements, especially within the church,
Interesting.
to create conflict
Oh, yeah.
and turn people against each other.
He's weaponizing cynicism and sowing discord wherever he can.
Pretty much. And he's very clever about it.
Yeah.
He also has some pretty warped views on love and relationships.
Oh, right. We were talking about that earlier, how he tries to use being in love as a weapon because love seems like such a powerful force for good.
That's exactly why he wants to distort it and control it.
Okay.
He encourages Wormwood to tempt the human with superficial infatuations,
Okay.
those fleeting feelings of excitement and passion that inevitably fade.
Right.
He wants humans to chase those empty thrills
Okay.
rather than seeking genuine connection and lasting love, which he sees as a threat to his control.
So he's weaponizing our desire for connection
Yes.
and twisting it into something that ultimately leaves us feeling more isolated and alone.
That's a great way to put it. And it's a strategy that unfortunately seems to resonate with a lot of people even today.
It does?
Yeah. He even suggests, like, exploiting the human's relationship with his mother.
His own mother.
Yeah.
That's just messed up.
It is. But Screwtape is all about exploiting those close relationships. Okay.
You know, those deep-seated emotional connections. He suggests making the human's prayers for his mother overly spiritual.
Okay.
You know, like focusing on her perceived sins rather than on like her actual needs. And the idea is to kind of keep the human fixated on all those little things that irritate him about his mother.
Right.
You know, drive a wedge between them.
He's using religion as a way to justify being a bad son.
Exactly. It plays on that human tendency to focus on the negative in others while overlooking our own flaws.
Oh, yeah. For sure.
Screwtape wants to keep the human trapped in a cycle of judgment and resentment.
Right.
You know, blinded to the genuine love and connection that could be there.
It's like he's encouraging a spiritual narcissism almost.
Yes. And he loves to play on those insecurities, especially when it comes to relationships.
Okay.
You know, remember his whole strategy of pushing for fleeting infatuation over genuine love?
Yeah.
Well, that plays out in some really interesting ways in the human's life.
Okay. How so? How does that manifest? Well, the human starts to develop feelings for a woman who embodies the kind of love and faith that Screwtape despises.
Oh, so she's a threat.
Oh, yeah. Big time.
Yeah.
He views her as the embodiment of everything he's trying to fight against.
Oh, yeah.
And what's fascinating is how he tries to undermine their relationship.
Okay. How does he go about doing that?
He uses all sorts of subtle tactics. Like, for example, he encourages the human to focus on superficial differences, you know, to magnify those little quirks and habits that might create friction.
Okay.
He even tries to use their shared faith as a source of division, suggesting that her simple, genuine piety is somehow naive or childish.
So he's trying to poison the well.
Yes.
Before it even has a chance to really blossom.
Exactly. And it's a reminder of how easily we can be influenced by those subtle negative voices.
For sure.
Both internal and external.
Yeah.
That try to undermine our relationships and keep us from experiencing genuine love.
It's a good reminder to be mindful of those voices, isn't it?
It is.
Question those critical thoughts and ask, where is this coming from? Is this really true? Or is this just fear and insecurity talking?
Exactly. And that brings us back to the idea of undulation. Remember, Screwtape wants to keep humans fixated on those troughs. Those moments of doubt and despair. But what's really interesting is that the enemy actually uses those troughs.
Really?
For a completely different purpose.
How so? How does the enemy use those low points?
Well, think about it when we're struggling, when we're feeling lost and alone.
Yeah.
That's often when we're most open to seeking help. To reaching out for something beyond ourselves.
So those moments of weakness can actually become opportunities for growth.
Exactly. They can be catalysts for transformation moments when we let go of our pride and our need to control everything, and we open ourselves up to the enemy's grace.
It's like when you hit rock bottom and you realize that you have nowhere to go but up, and you're forced to surrender and ask for help.
Exactly. And that's precisely what Screwtape fears the most. He wants humans to believe they're self-sufficient. That they don't need anything beyond themselves.
Yeah.
Because that keeps them isolated, disconnected from the source of true strength and love.
So it's not about avoiding the troughs altogether. It's about how we navigate them. And what we choose to focus on when we're down there.
Exactly.
Do we give in to despair and cynicism, or do we use those moments to dig deeper?
Yeah.
Reach out for something more.
You got it. And that choice, that act of choosing hope over despair is what ultimately defines the human's journey in the Screwtape Letters.
Okay, so we've talked about Screwtape strategies, this whole concept of undulation, and how the enemy views those peaks and valleys so differently. But what about the human at the center of all this? What's their story, and how do they respond to all this manipulation?
That's where things get really interesting. We'll explore the human's internal struggle, their moments of doubt and clarity, and how they ultimately navigate this spiritual battle.
One of the things that's really struck me about this book is how it feels so relevant to our everyday lives. Even though it's about this spiritual warfare.
Yeah,
you know,
absolutely.
It's like those subtle temptations, those doubts and distractions. Those are all things that we all grapple with, whether we realize it or not.
Lewis had an amazing ability to capture, like, the nuances of human thought and behavior, those little internal struggles that often go unnoticed. And in the Screwtape Letters, he just lays those struggles bare.
Yeah.
He shows us how even, like, seemingly insignificant choices can have huge consequences.
So let's talk about the human at the center of all this.
Okay.
We've hinted at their story.
Yeah.
But I'm curious to hear more about their journey and how they ultimately navigate this spiritual battle.
Well, the human is going through a really tough time.
Okay.
War has come to their city.
Oh, wow.
And they're facing some very real danger and hardship. Yeah.
And of course, Screwtape sees this as like a golden opportunity to exploit their fear and despair. He's practically giddy, waiting for them to crack under pressure.
So he's rooting for them to fail.
Well, I don't know if Screwtape's really capable of rooting for anything in the way we understand it.
Okay.
His motivations are a lot more complex, more primal. He desires to consume, to possess, to draw that human soul away from the enemy and into his own sphere of influence.
So does he succeed? Does the human give in to all these manipulations?
That's where things get really interesting.
Okay.
Despite all of Screwtape's efforts, the human actually perseveres.
Wow.
They face their fears, they act courageously, and they even experience moments of profound grace amid all the chaos and destruction.
So good triumphs over evil. But how does that happen? What turns the tide for the human?
It's not like this sudden dramatic conversion or anything. It's a series of like small choices.
These seemingly insignificant moments where the human chooses to turn towards the enemy rather than give in to temptation.
Right.
You know, they choose compassion over bitterness, forgiveness over resentment, love over fear.
So it's those everyday acts of resistance.
Yes.
Those small but significant choices that ultimately make all the difference.
And those choices culminate in a really powerful and unexpected twist. The human is actually killed during an air raid.
Oh, wow. I wasn't expecting that. So it's a tragic ending then?
Not at all. It's actually a moment of ultimate victory for the human and a devastating defeat for Screwtape.
Okay.
Because you see, from the enemy's perspective, death is not the end.
Right.
It's a transition to eternal life, a homecoming.
So Screwtape loses his grip on the human soul the moment they die.
The final letter from Screwtape is filled with rage and despair as he realizes he's been completely outmaneuvered.
Yeah.
He describes the human's death as a sheer, instantaneous liberation.
Like a stripping away of all earthly burdens and a reunion with the divine.
What a powerful image. So even though Screwtape paints such a bleak picture of human existence, Lewis offers this message of hope and redemption.
He does. At its core, the Screwtape Letters is a story about the enduring power of love and grace, even in the face of unimaginable suffering. It reminds us that the choices we make, no matter how small they seem, have eternal consequences.
It's a really powerful message, and I think it resonates with anyone who's ever struggled with doubt or temptation or just feeling lost in the midst of life's chaos.
It's a timeless classic for a reason. The Screwtape Letters continues to challenge and inspire readers because it speaks to those universal truths of human experience. The struggle between good and evil, the search for meaning and purpose, and the enduring hope that love ultimately triumphs over darkness.
Well said. And on that note, I think we've reached the end of our deep dive into the Screwtape Letters. It's been a fascinating and thought-provoking journey.
It has. And I hope you, our listener, have found it as enriching as we have.
If you're intrigued by these themes and you want to explore them further, I highly recommend picking up a copy of the Screwtape Letters. You can find a link to purchase it in our show notes.
And as always, if you enjoyed this deep dive, be sure to subscribe to the show and share it with your friends. Until next time, keep seeking truth, keep asking questions, and keep diving deep.